Good news is your dates are here.
What's the bad news?
They're dead.
Oh, you're so cool, Brewster! Everybody's a suspect! Hey, Ted, where the hell's Corkscrew? Don't fuck with the Chuck!
Welcome back to Toe Tag Reviews. I'm Chuck, and today we're going to be talking about Dead Alive that came out in 1992, directed by Peter Jackson. Before he was known for like Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit and like all those big blockbusters, he started off doing low-budget horror movies, just like most directors do. This is his third film. His first one was really out there movie called Bad Taste, and it's really bizarre. Second one he did was Meet the Feebles, which I have not seen. This was originally called Brain Dead. In the United States, it went under the moniker of Dead Alive. It's super gory, and it's said to be one of the bloodiest films of all time, and it shows heavily. They used over 300 liters of blood, which is a absolute shit ton of blood. The island that they visit in the beginning of the movie is Skull Island, and that is the same island that he did King Kong in. Just kind of full circle. This movie, like overall, is just a very schlocky, super graphic, Three Stooges-esque type of movie. Really bizarre. It's really fun. It earns the title of goriest film of all time. So the movie begins with these two explorers. They go to Skull Island and they're retrieving this Samaritan rat monkey. I guess it's worth a lot of money. The natives that are on the island start chasing them down because they want the monkey. They end up running away. They get in this Jeep and they hit this speed bump. The monkey ends up scratching him and kind of biting him. They realize that he's been bitten and scratched, so he's infected. They kick him out of the Jeep, dismember one arm, dismember the other arm, and then he got a scratch right here on the forehead. So they end up cutting his head in half, taking the monkey back to the zoo, and you see him getting paid for it. We see one of the main characters, her name's Paquita. She's trying to find her love through these tarot cards that her grandmother's reading. In walks Lionel, who's this really klutzy, goofy like character, and you can't help but feel bad for him because he's socially awkward. You can tell he's a mama's boy. He'll do anything for his mom, and we kind of see that later on through the film. We get to meet Lionel's crazy mom, who's just super overprotective, and it kind of takes that route. She ends up becoming the head of the WLWL. She's wandering around the house, like telling Lionel all these chores that he has to do, but she's waving around this like big ass butcher knife. It's just very odd. Super odd. Paquita shows up. Her and Lionel kind of flirt, and they end up going on a date at the zoo. He has this like flashback when he looks in this pond of his dad dying when he was trying to save him at the beach as a kid. That comes into play later on in the movie. We see Lionel's mom like creeping behind bushes, pretty much spying on him. It goes down that road of she's not good for you, stay away from her, like no one is gonna take my Lionel away from me. They end up going to this monkey section. We see this one monkey eat this straight right hook, clean on the chin, gets knocked out, but it's knocked out by the rat monkey. It ends up like ripping the monkey's arm off and eating it. The zookeeper shows up and kind of gives like some weird backstory on it. I love this part because the zookeeper's cigarette, it's not lit, but he just has it in his mouth and it's like super soggy. It's totally a fake cigarette, but it's like a little dollar cigarette. It's super fucking corny looking. Lionel's mom got bit by the monkey, and she ends up killing it by stomping on its head with its heel, and you see like the eyes kind of like bulge out a little bit. The effects in this movie, start to finish, brilliant. Lionel takes her home to get some rest. Paquita shows up, returns his jacket, and he pretty much has to tell her, like, I can't see you anymore. You know, mom said. She gets kind of, like, upset about it, so he says, screw it. They end up having sex. We see the bite on Lionel's mom's arm kind of like fester, and it's making like this weird like fart noise, and it's super funny. The WLWL shows up. We see Lionel's mom like pushing him out of the way to go get ready. She like claws her cheek and like her skin peels back, and I love her response. She goes, oh. Lionel gets the idea to super glue her cheek, so we see him super gluing her cheek back. The crazy ass mom goes downstairs, and you can tell she's like half dead. She's trying to force these words out. She doesn't have the energy to, the strength. So Lionel ends up bringing out dessert, and it's custard pie, and the guy who's eating the custard pie makes me extremely uncomfortable because the way he eats it, the noise he makes, just everything about it. He eats it like very seductively, and his mom ends up like blurting out blood and it gets in his custard pie, and he delivers the best line.
Rich and creamy, just the way I like it.
Paquita shows up with her dog Fernando. Pretty much says that dark forces are coming. The dog runs upstairs, and we hear the mom and the dog kind of going at it. Paquita and Lionel both run upstairs, and it turns out Lionel's mom ate the dog, and he pulls out this huge wad of hair from her mouth.
Your mother ate my dog!
We see that his mom dies, but turns out, psych, she's not dead. When the nurse shows up, she ends up killing the nurse. Practical effects right there are fucking sweet. But I like the part when he stabs the nurse right in the forehead. Her neck snaps back. It's kind of like a running joke. Her head keeps doing this the whole movie, and like when it goes back, you see like all the meat and just grossness that's in her neck. But Lionel pretty much traps them both in the basement. He goes to the vet to get some like sedatives. It's like the weirdest and most like random part of this movie. The vet is actually like some weird German Nazi or something. You see him in his little patch right here, but he's got like these weird bifocals and shit on. Looks like Ichabod Crane from Sleepy Hollow. These weird like gadgets on his eye. He ends up selling Lionel some tranquilizers instead. So he goes home to take the tranquilizers and, tranquilize the nurse and his mom. But he ends up tranquilizing the nurse right in the eyeball, which is like, ouch. And then he does a beautiful snapmare right on his mom, and then he tranquilizes his mom like right up the nose. And whenever he does it throughout the movie, it's always in the nose. It's always going right up, and he just pulls it. And it just makes me like cringe a little bit because I hate needles, and that needle's like this fucking long, going right in the schnoz. It's his mom's funeral. Lionel's uncle shows up, and he looks like a discounted Ricky from Trailer Park Boys.
Come check this shit out. This is what I have to fucking deal with in this stupid job.
He pretty much starts hitting on Paquita. Director Peter Jackson makes a cameo as the Undertaker's assistant, and we get to see him get bitch slapped, which is really funny. I totally respect directors that have cameos in their own movies, like Tarantino. He's the master at it. I love that they're engaging in their movies. They're not the star, but they have just a little cameo, a little appearance. It's always nice to see. Lionel's uncle hits on Paquita. You can tell she's just very uncomfortable by it, but he has this like weird type of inhaler. It looks like a little plastic bottle. He's just always... He's not even like closing his mouth and inhaling. He's just like shooting air in his mouth. This dude sucks though. Like, if you've seen Dead Alive, you know what I'm talking about. The movie is super good, but I wish he wasn't in it. But Father Magruder is giving the speech for his mom. Lionel goes to tranquilize his mom again, even though she's already like in a casket, but she's not dead. So he goes to tranquilize her, and they kind of get in a little scuffle. They end up breaking through the glass. The one issue I do have with this movie is no one is giving a rat's ass the way she looks. She's clearly a zombie. She's fucking dead. Her skin's all decayed. Her eyes are different colors, and she's walking around trying to kill people, and everyone just passes it off. It's like, oh, yeah, I don't know. That's the only issue I have with the movie. Other than that, it's damn near perfect. He tells Paquita that he just needs to be left alone. Lionel's uncle hears that Lionel is going to be the sole beneficiary once she's dead. He wants her property and all her money to himself, so that comes into play in a few minutes. Lionel goes to dig up his mom, and these greasers show up. They end up talking shit to Lionel, and they all have really goofy, distinctive laughs that are fucking hilarious.
Yeah, mental.
They end up beating up Lionel and pissing on his mom's grave, which is like the biggest dick move, man.
It's my mother you're pissing on.
But as the guy's pissing on his mom's grave, she ends up coming up and like disemboweling him and launches his body across the fucking cemetery. The VHS rewind moment is, you guessed it,
This calls for divine intervention.
Father Magruder showing up to save the day. He ends up whooping everyone's ass,
I kick ass for the Lord.
and he does about 200 kicks all to the head, spinning roundhouse, fucking taekwondo shit, flying whatever, messing them all up, dude. He ends up dying though. He goes to like do this running, flying like drop kick. The zombie like completely like takes him and whips him across the cemetery, and he gets impaled on this giant finger. It's awesome, man. Absolutely fucking awesome. Lionel takes him back to his house. So he's got the nurse, his mom, Father Magruder, and one of the greasers. In this really hilarious scene, he ends up having to make them all food, and they all have problems eating. Like the greaser takes the spoon, sticks in his mouth, and it comes out the back of his head, and he's like whining like a little kid. The nurse ends up trying to eat, and her neck goes back, and like all the goo and custard pie just fucking comes out. Really gross shit. All you hear is like that. his uncle shows up and pretty much tells Lionel, like, I want the house, like, your mom left it to me. And Lionel says, dude, if you want the house, you gotta go through the lawyers. I don't got time for this shit. He's like, well, this is just a family matter. We don't need to get lawyers involved. That whole shit. He hears like loud moaning and shit coming from the kitchen. So he goes to see, and Lionel runs across the room and blocks the door. Obviously, they're having sex in there, the two zombies. The uncle's such a dipshit, he thinks that he found his dad's old stag films.
Is that the one with the donkey in the chambermaid?
What? The effects of the sex scene, like when they're kissing, the skin around his mouth gets like pulled and stretched and ripped off. Like that whole effects right there, perfect. Top notch. For having such a very low budget and making it look that gruesome and gory, job well done. Yeah, boy. The nurse instantly gets pregnant somehow, immediately pregnant and like get ready to pop. So that's always strange. Lionel ends up taking the baby on a little stroll at the park. I love it because one scene it's an actual like doll. Another scene it's like a 3-foot tall person in the suit just running through the fucking park. It goes on throughout the whole movie, but like some scenes it's a doll, some scenes it's an actual like human, which is just awesome because how bad it is. The way the baby looks reminds me of a younger me, which is very odd and kind of scary. His uncle shows up again and he finds the zombies in the basement. He pretty much blackmails Lionel. It's like, I won't have to tell the cops as long as I can get the house and shit. He kind of agrees to it. His uncle's friends show up and this huge party. They're dancing, they're drinking alcohol, having a blast. Paquita shows up and she goes downstairs and she sees all the zombies down there. The greaser zombie ends up getting released and all hell starts to break loose. Lionel ends up saving Paquita though from the greaser zombie. He takes this rake and stabs him in the head and puts it in a vice so he can't move. But they all like shoot up out of the ground like they're in Mortal Kombat. But the zombies escape and it's full dismemberment chaos. It goes on for like 15-20 minutes, so I'm not gonna get too much into that. But there's a comedic moment in there. Paquita ends up saving this girl named Rita. She takes one of the zombies and like pushes him against the wall and he gets impaled by a light bulb and the face just starts glowing. You see it periodically throughout the final act. It's really just corny and awesome at the same time. But the final act turns into a lot of like the Three Stooges aspect. It's super comedic, beyond gory. There's a scene where that little baby ends up getting pinballed back and forth in the room, and when it comes back to Paquita, she takes like this frying pan, cracks it in the head, and its head is like indented in the frying pan. His uncle shows up. It's a montage, but it's like sped up of him cutting up the fucking zombies really fast. When you watch it, you just have to love it. You have to just laugh at the absurdity of it. That's basically what this movie is. It's just a big ball of what the hell, man. I love every second of it. I can't look away. It's just pure bliss. And if you're a horror fan, you'll eat this shit up all day. We see his uncle taking a zombie and like grinding it up with the iconic Looney Tunes Acme. That's just my point. It's just super out there and it gives zero fucks. It holds nothing back. Lionel shows up in this super iconic scene of him picking up the lawnmower and just mowing. He goes through a straight line, not once, not twice, but multiple times back and forth. And it's just intestines here, arms there, head there, leg here. Awesome, man. I cannot stress that enough. Lionel's mom is now a super giant zombie. She ends up killing his piece of shit uncle, finally. He should have died the second we seen him, but what can you do? His doucher ass uncle, though, shows up looking like one of the creatures from The Thing. His spine's all protruded and like his head's just floating, but if you look behind his head, you can see like the wire like moving his head. And that just goes to show like before Peter Jackson blew up, this is what we got from him. And I'm not mad at all. It's awesome. Paquita ends up killing him. If he was gonna die, I would want it to be from Paquita. He's like just creepy and like really aggressively trying to like hit on her. It's just poetic, you know what I mean? Mama Bear shows up looking
Thicker than a bowl of oatmeal.
her stomach like opens up and engulfs him and eats him. He takes that amulet that we see throughout the whole movie and he like carves his way out of her stomach. Gallons of blood gushes out and it's fucking sweet. The fire department shows up because the house is ablaze. Once the fire department shows up, they kind of save the day and Lionel and Paquita live happily ever after. That's this movie. Overall, 5 out of 5. If you haven't seen it, please go watch it. And if you have seen it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I wish we would have got to see more Father Magruder, like if he showed up at the end. Not like zombie Father Magruder, but like him helping Lionel, because that would be awesome.
I kick ass for the Lord.
He's by far my favorite character in the movie, even though it's short-lived. This has been my review for Dead Alive, one of the best splatterhouse films I've ever seen. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and until then, see you later.